my Needham friends and neighbors. And we're going to hear from a truly great man who I only met in the last year, someone who has a deep and abiding commitment to social justice. And this commitment is matched only by his understanding that we need a long-term, progressive, grassroots movement to get the change done that we all want to see. It was never about one election or one man, the work that we did together over the past year, for those of us who were working for this man here. We were doing this for the cause, and so was he, and that is why we dug deep for him, and we dug deep for the values that we shared. So it's no surprise to me to see Don out on the trail working so hard for Martha, because it is about the cause and about what we're building. And this office is really important. We saw, I hope you saw during the primary, how Don changed the conversation by being bold and aggressive and speaking his mind and speaking to our values. And I think we've also seen over 2 terms how important the office of Massachusetts governor can be when we have a charismatic, bold, progressive leader who's willing to... rousing speeches from both of these men, but I just want to remind everyone of the great speech at the convention in 2012. And that's the national stage. So Massachusetts can and should be a progressive leader for the whole nation. And this is an office we cannot afford to give up to a man who thinks that we can be great by cutting welfare for poor people and just giving tax breaks to the wealthiest. We are not great by doing these things, which are just Romneyisms warmed over again. So it's really important that we all dig deep over the next several days, step outside our comfort zones a little bit, talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, sign up to volunteer. If you haven't done it before, somebody will help you. If it makes you nervous, I get it, but we can help you. Get out of your comfort zone and knock on doors and call some people, because this is too important. So I've been so proud and honored to work with all of you on this campaign and past campaigns for the last several years. And we're all bending this arc together, and I'm just as proud to introduce to you a really terrific guy, Don Berwick.
Thank you, Harmony, and thank you all for the chance to spend a couple minutes with them between you and the governor. I'll respect that. Like all of you, I have Mayor Menino completely on my mind right now, and I'm just hoping that to address the political imperatives that exist with us approaching this election, this doesn't show any disrespect to that great man at all. I had the chance to meet with him once when I was deciding to run, and I'll just never forget the time. If he said, "Please remember the people," once, he said it a dozen times in the half hour I had with him. Over and over again, he said, "Remember, the leadership and the political agenda is about the people out there day after day after day." That was his message, and it meant a lot to me. And so I just honor him and now his memory. As you know, this election for me was about values, and it remains that way. It's about the values that underlie the kind of community that I think Mayor Menino imagined and worked for, that I know you want. My special feelings for Needham could not be stronger. Coming here during the campaign many, many times, I just felt such warmth and outreach and welcome from you, and an alignment of values. I see faces here of the people who just resonated with this idea that social justice and equality and compassion, the 3 words I used over and over again, is real and it matters. And I thank you for every ounce of support that you gave me during a wonderful 18 months to try to help this Commonwealth. Now I have one very clear request for you, and that is, please take every single ounce, every gram of energy that you had to devote to the kind of signaling that I was giving you and you were giving me. Let's take that and put Martha Coakley in the corner office. Let's go. reasons are the same that we talked about for 18 months. The reasons, they transcend time, they transcend an election, they transcend a candidate, but they require action, and action every day. On the trail, I met the people who are on my mind, the people I think Aaron Moon was talking about. A woman I met at a shelter, a homeless shelter. She was no longer homeless. She had gotten an apartment with her daughter, but not thanks to the housing voucher program, which has been cut in this state. We used to have 19,000 housing vouchers. Now it's 8,000. It should be 20,000. She was a proud woman who did not want to depend on anyone else, and she said, we're making it on her own. She was in the presence of her 5-year-old daughter, and I said, how's it going? And she said, pretty well, but for 2 years we lived on the floor. And I said, well, what? You lived on the floor? What do you mean? It wasn't a metaphor. She couldn't afford furniture, and in this wealthy state, in this compassionate state, in this state that talks about values, a woman and her 5-year-old child lived with no furniture for 2 years because she was too proud to accept help. The governor's been with me a couple times. I talked about another instance on the trail for me. It's my growing commitment to our correction system and to making it just. In this state today, the probability of a black person being in prison is higher than the probability of a black person being in prison during apartheid in South Africa at the height of apartheid. We have to understand that the issues of justice we're talking about are real. And I met a kid, George Sanchez. I've been visiting him. I saw him last Monday, this week, in Holyoke. He's in the SSYA program that this governor started, Safe and Successful Youth Initiative. He's dangling on a thread. George has been in prison. He's only 20 years old, but he's had a gun, he's stolen a car, he's committed armed robbery, he's been in prison. He wants a route back, and that depends on us reaching out to him and not apologizing for the compassion that would show. He's at risk. We need to help George. He said something to me that I will repeat every chance I get. I said to him, George, I've got you on my mind. He said, thank you. He said, please say my name on television. And I was puzzled at the moment. Why would he say that? Because I realize why he would say it. What he's saying is, I'm a person. I'm here. Mayor Menino knew that. Governor Patrick knew that. This state has got to know that. And we can't forget the people. Justice, justice, justice. If you think this election doesn't matter, that it's a coin flip, it doesn't matter who's in that office, you are absolutely wrong. George needs vocational training, he needs outreach with social services, he needs mental health care, he's going to need help getting his GED. I hope he's going to get help going to a community college at no cost to him at all. Now, I know the governor we need in order to make sure that it carries on the legacy of this governor, make sure that happens. If we elect the opponent, the Republican, we are going to get market forces and diligence in protecting us against welfare fraud and downsizing government because government's gotten too big for his britches. We will not get George the help he wants. Let's get George the help. Vote for Martha Copley. Get her in.
That cell phone. That. So last Tuesday, I'm not kidding. Last Tuesday, I'm in Springfield. We get for an event. We get there a little early. And because we were a little early, we went by a local restaurant to pick up some lunch. It's a little bit before the lunch rush, so the restaurant was mostly empty. And so we ordered burgers, and we were standing around the front waiting for the order to come. And a guy in chef's togs walks out and does a double take. And he says, "Are you Governor Patrick?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm taller on TV. I know." And we shook hands. And he said, "Do you remember signing the Corey bill?" And I said, "Of course I remember signing the Corey bill." He said, "Well, do you remember talking to someone on a cell phone?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, I was that guy." Amen. He said, "I was sitting in jail when I took that call." He said, "I got out of jail and I got this job on account of Corey reform." He's the executive chef at this restaurant today. Here's my point. There is a human being behind these choices. Right? Every time the question comes about whether to fund the schools, there is a child behind those line items. Right? Martha's talking about bringing mental health issues out of the shadows and into the light. Those line items have human souls, aching souls, aspirational souls. Your friends and neighbors, maybe some of you, right behind our choices. And I want, and we need, a governor who is thinking about those souls.
Amen.
Right? We tried all the stuff the Republican nominee is talking about. We tried it. You were there. We tried all that. For 16 years we tried it. By the way, it's not a different message just because the messenger is smiling this time around. It's the same message. And what did it deliver? We were 47th in the country in job creation 8 years ago. Every time there was a call about how to balance the budget, the choice made by previous governors was to cut the school budget. Legislature wouldn't often let them do it, but that was the choice made, right? Our roads and rails were falling apart. Why? Because all the money that was spent, most of it secretly, on a project called the Big Dig, and everything else was starved. Budgets were in structural imbalance. And we were near junk bond status in our bond rating.